Hi there. My name is Ahmed Elmokashfi. I'm a PhD student at Simula Research Laboratory in Norway. So I'm presenting a joint work with my supervisor, Ahmed and Konstantin Dovronis. We're basically studying the evolution of BGP dynamics. So as we know, the size of the internet has grown tremendously during the past decade. So here I show like two metrics which are more relevant to the routing system. To the left, we have the number of ASs and how that has increased between 2003 and 2010. So we see an increase of 146% during this period. To the right, we show the size of the DFZ routing table. During the same period, we see an increase of 168%. So this data from Routeviews. Of course, I mean, this growth triggers a lot of concern about the scalability of the current routing architecture. So a workshop on routing and addressing organized by the IAB in 2007 concluded that routing scalability is the most important challenge that's facing the current architecture. And we need to come up with a new scalable routing and addressing architecture to kind of solve this problem. So why we need to come up with that, and why is scalability the problem? One reason is just DFZ rip, that the increase is the DFZ rip I showed in the last slide. And we know the reasons here. Multi-homing, deaggregation of prefixes, provide independent addressing. And the second reason is churn, BGP dynamics. So what do I mean by churn here? You know that BGP is incremental. So whenever a route changes, a BGP router would inform its neighbors of that change. And you need to process those messages timely to avoid prolonged convergence and to avoid impact on data delivery. So our work here focuses on the second issue, churn. So that's its potential threat. But the first question that comes to your mind is, what is the current status? So in fact, churn is very complex. And it's an interplay of several factors. So we know very little about the overall picture. An earlier study by Houston and Armitage back in 2006 reported an alarming growth in churn. So basically, that study measured, they had one vantage point that connected to Telestra during 2005, and they logged all messages. And what they observed, that churn doubled, while the routing table size grew by 18%. So basically, they observed a faster growth in churn than in the routing table size, which is alarming. So our work is a bit different. We try to measure the evolution of churn over a longer period at the core of the internet. And we try to understand different components that contribute to churn. So this is what we do. We get our data from Routeviews. We study the period between January 2003 until August 2010. And we pick monitors in 4 core networks: AT&T, Level 3, Sprint, and France Telecom. So the data we get, we got the data from Routeviews Oregon IX. And here I just put the IP addresses of the monitors that we used. So before I move to the data and the results, Let's just go through what determines churn. So the first factor would be the size of the network. So as the network grows, then you have more elements, you have more components, you have more links, you have more routers, and potentially more failures and changes. So you expect churn to grow. And again, the structure of the topology, the properties of the topology. So for example, multi-homing, if stub ASs start to increase multi-homing, that would amplify failures, because failures would be communicated through different paths or through different upstreams. And also we have the configuration. If you enable the timer, the MRAI timer, for example, you cut down the number of messages, you cut down intermediate states, and the same route flap damping. The other thing is that what kind of events that we have and how frequent they occur. For example, a routing event that affects a transit link would have, that carry multiple prefixes would have large impact than a failure of a stop link or an access link. So let's start. So here, as I said, we have monitors from 4 ASs, core ASs. I will present results from mostly 2 monitors here, just for space, because of space. And so what I show here, this is what we get from Routeviews. So we show the daily number of updates, the total daily number of updates, as we saw from AT&T and through our period, through our study period from 2003 to 2010. So this is very noisy, and it's very bursty, and it's very difficult to say anything about this data. It's like, how does it grow? How fast does it grow at all? It's just difficult. And again, there are many low spikes. There are level shifts where you see churn jumping to a certain level, then dropping back. And so maybe using statistical methods to analyze this is not the right approach, because if you use statistics, you would smooth the time series, try to remove the outliers, but those outliers, they tell us something about the network. So we need to understand them rather than removing them. So the best approach here would be to decompose this time series, try to understand several the different factors that kind of contribute to this time series. Here I show also the data. To the left I show the same plot that I showed in the last slide. To the right I show the same time series as we see it, as we saw it from level 3. So you see here, the level 3 is different. We have lower shifts, we have spikes, but they are not really correlated. And this also tells us about statistics here. If we use statistics, we can get different results and different conclusions. So the approach that we follow basically is to dissect this, is to decompose it and try to understand the several factors that contribute to it. Also, you see the difference in what we observe here, like there are differences between level 3 and AT&T, and shows us there's something that's related to the monitors themselves. So what we do is to take this raw time series that we get from Routeviews, and then try to look at different factors that are related to the monitor. So just to mask or to take away those effects of the monitoring infrastructure or the monitoring AS. And we try to filter them out and look at what is remaining, what really characterizes the evolution of churn in the internet. So the first thing that we look at is duplicate updates. So by a duplicate, I mean what? I mean like an update that doesn't carry any new information. So you receive an update for a route that's just similar to the last update. Obviously, this is not useful at all. It's just more processing. And you will discard it because it doesn't carry any new information. So, to our surprise, we found that during this time period that like 40% of updates were duplicates. Here we show the same time series, the row one to the left, and to the right we show that after filtering duplicates, we see that much of the noise is gone now, and duplicates account for large number of spikes. In this table, we show the percentage of duplicates, or the fraction of duplicates per monitor and over time. We can observe that there are differences. There is no trend here. There are duplicates, but they are not increasing, they are not decreasing. They might increase, they might decrease, but there is no trend. And across monitors also, especially, they are different. So the first question is, what really causes this? In the past, there was work where was suggested like stateless implementations that don't keep track of what was sent in the course. Now we don't have stateless implementations. What we have is unwanted interactions between iBGP and eBGP. And so what is, some updates are quite informational within the AS. But when they are sent outside, the border router would strip some information that's not to be conveyed, and it will look like a duplicate. Can we solve this? Yes, we can solve that, but we need to keep a state, and we need to match against that state. So we need to have more memory and more processing. So it's a question now. Who is going to do this? The sender side or the receiver side? Now it's all pushed to the receiver side. So you receive this duplicate, you run your decision process or whatever, and then you throw it away. So to do that in terms of exchange updates, you need to do that at the sender side. The next step, we look at routing events or large local events. These are routing events that affect multiple prefixes within the monitor AS or at the edge of the monitor AS. So unlike duplicates, large events are legitimate. I mean, they reflect some changes, but they are local. So they are local to the monitoring. They don't tell us anything about the overall evolution of churn in the internet or at the core. So how we do this? We use some heuristics to group updates into events, and then we define large events as events that affect simultaneously 2,000 prefixes. The plots show, to the left we have the duplicate free time series. So we start from the row, we filter the duplicates. To the right, we show the same time series after filtering large events. So it's clear that most of the spikes are gone now, and we have less spikes in time series. So most of the spikes are caused by local effects that are close to the monitor areas or within the monitor areas. When we looked into these large events, we found like failures within the areas to be cause of them, or med oscillations, or sometimes we saw communities that tells you, okay, we changed the exit point, geographical communities, so many prefixes will just change. We'll send you new updates for many prefixes. It just tells you we changed the exit point within the AS. And we also observed that the frequency and the number of large events varies across monitors. But I want again to stress here, I mean, we remove large events not because they are not relevant in sense like they are, like duplicates, they are superfluous. No. Large events are local, and we want to get an idea about the overall evolution of churn. If you go back, look again at the right plot, after removing the large events, we still see some periods where churn jumps. Like we have level shifts, like the one in early 2004, we dropped sometime in, drops back again sometimes in 2005, and then we see some level shifts in 2006, 2 of them. So this is what we'll be looking at next. So here, I point out level shifts in AT&T time series. We have 5 level shifts. And the way we approached these level shifts was like we took all prefixes that, were updated during the level shifts, and we tried to see how much churn is contributed, how much churn is contributed by different prefixes. So the right top plot shows the contribution, the contribution of different prefixes to the overall churn. So during level shifts, we observed that only few prefixes, just a small fraction of prefixes, contribute the majority of churn. So when we looked at this, we found the causes to be continuous flapping. We found the causes to be misconfigurations, where leaking of internal information or leaking of private AS numbers. And those are related to the monitored AS. So different monitors had different level shifts, but usually the causes were like flapping or some misconfigurations. So when we removed the level shifts, we got this time series on the bottom right. That's relatively free of spikes and jumps. So just to recap on this time series, we started from a very raw time series. We filtered duplicates, which are clearly like implementation mistakes or choices, and then we filtered large events that are related to the monitor AS, and then we filtered the level shifts. So I show that again to, here we show that for the level 3 monitor. So I've been showing that for AT&T all the time. Now I show that for level 3. And we still see, we have level shifts, we have duplicates, and we have large events. And we arrived at about the same time series in the end. So we call this a baseline churn, the churn that's like free of local effects of the monitoring environments, free of duplicates. So when we characterize this, it's more first of all, it's more tractable using statistical methods. And when we characterize this, we find that, surprisingly, this is growing relatively slower than the routing table size. So the churn has grown by 103% at most, while the routing table size grew by like 168%. And that most of the severe bursts and severe spikes or level shifts are caused by local effects. They're not really caused by global effects. It's not because of the evolution of the internet per se. And also we found that now these 4 monitors to be more correlated. So the correlation like increased by order of magnitude between these time series now. So they're capturing what's really happening in the internet away from the local effects. So the growth in this baseline churn is relatively slow. It is unlikely to be a threat in the near future to the scalability of the internet. So just to summarize, so as I said, we started by decomposing the time series. Here I show these 2 pie charts, show the decomposition over the whole period. So the baseline churn is like accounts for 30% in AT&T, 47% in level 3, and the rest is like local effects or duplicates. So to conclude here, we can say that, okay, we have some problems that we need to address related to level shifts, misconfigurations, related to large events. One solution may be what Lydia has presented about mitigating the effect of flapping prefixes, because we've seen flapping prefixes causing level shifts here and causing large events. So we can benefit a lot from doing that by fixing what we have now. And the baseline, and we need to understand why the baseline is growing slowly, because whatever was that reason, we need to keep it. Because if we can't maintain these conditions, then it might grow faster, and it will be a threat by then. So our ongoing work now is to understand this, to understand reasons behind this slow growth. We have a theory, densification. So networks now, the internet is getting denser, both through peering or multi-homing. So as the network gets denser, failures will have a limited scope, because there's always an alternative route. So if a link fails, it's likely going to affect fewer and fewer as the network gets denser. We are looking to that. We don't have a conclusive results yet. And here, this is ending my talk. Thank you very much. Questions?
Any questions?
Yes. Questions. Okay.
Hi, Jeff Haas. I have a quick question about your methodology for the duplicate stuff. What source of data, what is the form of the data that you're using to determine that something is a duplicate?
So we basically trace the time series that we get from Routeviews, and we maintain the last seen update. First of all, we filter session resets from the data between the collector and the monitor, because there are some session resets that are local to the monitoring environment. And then we just keep track of updates, and we just compare the whole update stream.
I think my question is a little more fundamental than that. It's been a while since I've looked at the Routeviews data. Are you getting like MRT files, from there?
Yeah, we get MRT files. Yeah.
Okay, so you're actually doing full BGP
we
updated comparisons.
Yeah, we do that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Right, well.
Hi.
Hi.
Chris Morrow, Google. So I have a couple comments. The first one is that the view at the edge of the network is very different than the view in the core of the network. And by the core, I mean AT&T's core or Level 3's core in this particular case. Mm-hmm. So I think the update rates that you see at the edge are somewhat suppressed and filtered. It's a different set. So it would be interesting to see the same sort of analysis applied to an internal router in one of those networks, right? And you probably would have to do it with, I would suspect, something like BMP as opposed to just a straight BGP feed, because you'll get a different view from that too. So that's the first observation. The second one is that I think filtering out the large events sort of hides some of the problem here, which is I can't converge the network if I can't update fast enough. Mm-hmm. So I still need to understand what the maximum update rate the particular device set can handle. And if I exceed that, then I have to understand that that's going to impact my convergence at that time. Mm-hmm. And if it impacts it over time long enough, then I can't be successful as a network operator, right? Mm-hmm. So I like the fact that there's some, hey, it's not really as big a problem as we thought it was. That was nice to see, and seeing the data filtered down in appropriate fashion was also nice. But again, the internal data would be interesting. I suspect it's much higher than 103% growth. Right. Danny McPherson has some interesting data about this actually from Level 3's network. So Danny and Shane, you might talk to Shane about it.
Okay. Thank you. Very interesting comments.
Okay. Thank you.